Hello, everyone. This is the first episode of Hey Dad, and what we're going to be discussing today is something that is kind of a big topic. It's called world peace, but before I get started, I wanted to tell you I'm not going to make this tremendously long, but I wanted to tell you that this Hey Dad idea came about because I noticed that as I was growing up, my father, every time I want to talk to him, hey dad. And then I realized that my son's doing it to me too. He says, hey dad, so that's where I got the hey dad idea from. It's not tremendously important about the specifics of, where it came from, but today I wanted to discuss something, world peace, and I wanted to really dig into it because we kind of joke about it on TV, and they're always saying, oh, the beauty contestants always say, world peace. And, I think they had it in Groundhog's Day when they were given a toast in a bar or something, to toast to world peace. It's a big topic. And so as a big topic, I wanted to relate this down to something achievable. Like if you wanted to teach someone else or you wanted to straighten yourself out or help out in some way, like you want to make a difference in this world. So how do you do that? How would you actually make a difference in this world, especially with such a big topic as world peace? I can't change what some other country is doing, but I can change something maybe closer to me. That'll change something a little bit farther away from me, which will change something even farther out. When you look at world peace, it always stuck out to me that it was something along the lines of the big picture. That when your dad's teaching you how to drive, or the instructor's telling you, oh, make sure when you're driving you look at the big picture. And the big picture it's kind of funny because the big picture ends up having a whole bunch of smaller versions of the picture involved in it. And what's this kid going to do as I'm driving by? That's a whole story in itself of what this kid might be doing. So being able to look at the pieces of the big picture sometimes helps us get closer to solving the bigger problems. So how would you start with something like this? Man, it's really tough. I can't think of a way that I would be able to influence a country, because inside the country, the countries don't talk to each other, but inside my own country, the states don't talk to each other that well. They don't cooperate with everything all the time. Maybe the cities, towns, and villages don't cooperate. They got more money than us, or they're running things better than us, or whatever it might be. And then you get down to your city, your town, your village, and all. It's just there's so many confusions. Of course, you got your county, you got your city, towns, villages, you got your neighborhoods. So let's start from a good attack point. Guys like to solve problems. If a car is not working, we like to think about, well, how would you fix it? Or if you're a computer guy, how would I fix this computer problem? How can I make this computer problem a little bit better? To maybe fix something or design it or just get it to work, whatever it might be. Or the TV isn't working real well. A lot of times people come to us and you're the guy, you should know how to do it. So how would you start with the world peace idea? Okay, well, obviously I have to fix me to help build bridges to my family, my extended family, neighbors. How about the people I go to church with? How about my parish? Just we're up for the challenge. We've always been up for the challenge. And one of the things I find so great about it is that we usually are very successful with our challenges. Guys usually don't give up too easily. So this is pretty good starting point. So what would be a really awesome starting point? What if we started trying to fix me by going to God? And you're like, oh man, that's a pretty big picture right there in itself. And yeah, it is. He gave us his son. He gave us angels and saints, the angels in heaven, that is, and saints that are up in heaven. And he gave us people that are guaranteed to have entry into heaven, that they're not going to make mistakes anymore. Same thing with people in purgatory. They're not going to make mistakes anymore. They're just paying back their temporal punishment so they can get to heaven and stay there forever. So just like I might go to my brother and say to him, hey, can you pray for me? Or can you pray for my wife? She's not doing real well. And he's like, yeah, sure, I will. But why can't we ask the angels and saints? So when we sit there and want to do something, let's start by going to God and saying, listen, God, I need help. Oh, I'm living a pretty messy life. And, the angels and saints, they kind of listen. Well, the angels didn't live a messy life, but the saints probably had some difficult moments in their lives that they were able to get through. So I say, hey, can you guys pray with me? And I really need somebody to feel like they're on my side. And they are. So you start praying to God and you realize, you know what? A really great starting point is the fact that we are baptized Catholics, because now we can go to confession. And if we've received our sacrament of Holy Eucharist, we can go to communion. Don't go to communion if you have a mortal sin on your soul, because you'll be committing another mortal sin. And mortal sins immediately chop you off from God. So here I am. I'm trying to make world peace. I'm trying to make peace maybe something more achievable. And I'm looking at like the little pictures right now. So here's a smaller picture that I need to make right with God. Start with confession. And if you're not Catholic, go to the local parish that you'd like to be around and ask them to go into the RCIA program, which would allow you to start getting they'll teach you about why these things are so important. And you'll get your baptism, then you'll qualify. The minute you get your baptism, you get the sanctifying grace that comes from confession as well, which releases you from your sin. And, as long as he didn't hold them bound to you, which I don't think a priest usually does. They've heard a lot of stuff, I'm sure, over the years, maybe even from me. And it's one of those things that they will forgive you for you go in there with an honest confession, and they'll bring you to forgiveness, with God. They are given the power, permission, authority to forgive you. That came from the Bible, the New Testament, in so many different places. Well, here we are. So now I'm trying to make it right with God, because I want to make peace in my family, just say, or my neighbors, or my church. How do I do this? So I'm making it right with God. I went to confession. I feel a lot better. I finally get to go to communion again. Now I have the sanctifying grace, which gets me into heaven. It doesn't get me into heaven, but which it brings me closer to God. And, through his sacrifice that he did for us, he got us into heaven. But it brings us much closer to God. So anyways, what we're looking at this point is that I finally am getting things straight. It's a never-ending thing. It's just like, if a bolt has a hole in it and water keeps coming in, you scoop out the water and or else you drown. We don't want to drown. We want to be close to God. We want things to go pretty well meshed with what he wants us to do and how he wants us to do it. So I've starting to make progress with, the fact that I'm learning and I'm listening, stuff like that. And I start realizing that maybe I should start reaching out to my family, my extended family, and things that I was very impatient with them with. I go on the confession and say, listen, I've been real impatient with, my family, or whatever the sins may be, yelling, screaming, whatever it might be, or not giving them enough time, neglect, not doing what you're supposed to do can be a sin as well in certain places and certain things that you've done. So we have to look at this in the sense that we are now going to try and build that bridge, a little other piece of the puzzle here. So, I'm trying to keep God in my life the best I can. And he's now helping me with, the angels and saints, my guardian angel. Everyone's trying to help me to stay listening to what he says. And now I'm not so impatient, maybe with my family, my relatives, whatever it might be. Maybe I can start doing peace between them, building that bridge of peace and not taking away the old stuff. You don't want to be stubborn to the very end. You don't want to be the guy who, when you die, like, God, I held out. I did not let my brother have an ounce of forgiveness because he said something bad to me when we were 3 or 4 years old or 12 years old, or he stole my girlfriend. Don't worry, I was stubborn to the end. God's like, well, you know what? I'm going to judge you. You judged him, wouldn't give him any forgiveness. Maybe I should do the same thing to you. We have to realize that we can't just sit there and hold these grudges and everything. So now I'm extending out to maybe a neighbor. I say hi to him. I have this thing about I probably would never have done this unless I saw another guy doing this. But one of my neighbors used to come over and help me. He had one of those machines, that the snow blows. The thing was like a V8 engine almost, I think. And he used to come over and help me do my driveway with my little putt-putt snowblower I have. And I was always wondering, like, I hope he doesn't expect any money. I'm cheap. When it comes to cheap, I'm cheap. And what ends up happening, he just waved to me and kept doing what he did. So when he finally left the neighborhood, I went back and I started, I did it before that point. I started going over to my other neighbor's yard and I kind of did the front. We never said hi to each other. I didn't even know who they were. And I kind of just took off the heavy snow from the front that the plows pushed in there. And I knew she was alone and everything, but I just wanted to do that. I didn't do the rest of her driveway, anything like that. I didn't have any, I just wanted to help out a little bit. And surprisingly enough, you got to wave every so often. You don't have to have a conversation, but that's bringing world peace. If everybody did a little bit, that little bit adds up to the big picture. If every driver on the road did a little bit of courtesy, even if there were still accidents, which there's probably going to be, that would make driving a little calmer, a little bit easier to deal with. I would tell you right now that there are people who have a lot of talents. And, especially even with driving, guys are pretty good at driving. They're pretty good drivers. But man, when someone pulls in front of you and doesn't put the directional on, they turn into maniacs. These are good guys that I like and everything. They turn into these road rage maniacs. And, it is literally reminds me of a contagious disease, a contagious poison that road rage is. And that comes from our impatience. That comes from not doing what we should be doing, which is exercising the patience. So here we are, we're helping our neighbor, and the neighbor goes and cuts us off. Now, revenge is usually like 2.5 times what the original offense was. Well, I'll get them. They just pulled in front of me. I'm going to drive on the side of the road, and I'm going to pass them. I'm going to put my brakes on, I'm going to honk the horn, give them the finger. So I'm committing 2.5 times the crimes that they committed by not putting the directional on. That's not going to bring us anywhere. That's going to spread the poison. How do you be more patient? Again, you work on yourself and your connection with God. And it wasn't until I started doing a lot of work as well, I started listening a lot more. I started realizing that he had probably a better plan for my life than I would have ever had. And I'm surprised when I drive that things don't bother me as much anymore. I'm much more patient with people. I've extended that to my family. I'm much more patient with them. No one's perfect. That's what we got confession for. As long as we're truly sorry, we can go to confession. So we don't have to miss out on getting communion either daily if you go to daily mass or once a week. But it's really hard to admit that you could be wrong. And again, the big picture is, oh, yeah, I want world peace. Well, you're not going to get it if you can't make peace with God, if you can't make peace in your own family, your extended family, your neighbor. The people who are driving on the road with you are kind of like your neighbors. They're like in these little houses, beep, beep. And there's people out there that are going to drive like Mr. Magoo. And you just have to sit there and back off a little bit. Hopefully, maybe you can say, God, I know they're driving like a jerk, but whatever the reason is, hopefully they don't kill anybody or hurt themselves or hurt someone else or hurt, property. You can be honest about it too. That that's, guess what? I kind of did the same thing when I was young, and it's hard to admit that. That you didn't drive the right way or whatever. I want you to understand that you're building outward. You started with God, who gave you life to begin with. You make peace. You're trying to make peace with him, and he wants you to make peace with everyone else, and you're spreading what you've been taught. So your church, there's things you could do. I don't know. They're doing a cooking thing, and maybe they need someone to wash the dishes. Now, you don't want to eat my cooking, and believe me, I don't want to eat my cooking. But maybe I can go in there and sweep the floors or empty the garbage cans or fold the tables and carry them away while everyone else is doing something. There's guys that are in the Knights of Columbus and do all these great things and everything. But if you're just not there yet, there is a guy where I used to live. He was like 86, 87 years old when I left about 5 years ago. So he's probably about 90, 91 now. And he was an altar boy, because the little boys don't step up because we're not telling our boys, this is really important to do. I was an altar server, and I've always considered, maybe I should go back. And we have to get over ourselves. When are we going to be able to do this? I do not have a schedule right now that I can guarantee that I can be there for the mass I scheduled for. But the thing is that I have a lot of respect for those guys that are much older and are now going back and being altar boys. There's things you can do, whether just say you're good with computers, maybe you can help your church with something or whatever it might be. But there's always something that you can do, whether it's just donating your tithe, which is 10% of your income, or, food pantry. They need, 3 cans of beans from you, whatever it might be. I don't know what it is, but you're going to have to dig and you're going to have to find it. And sometimes when we search, we find. And sometimes when we search doing something good, God points us at something that could do really good. There are churches out there that help out people who can't do small carpentry stuff around their house, but there's carpenters. These guys are really good at it, and they volunteer their time to, I don't know, put up a shelf that fell off the wall or help put up a wheelchair ramp, whatever it might be. There's a lot of different things we could try and do. There's a whole bunch of things we could try and do to help out. And that's extending. We drive a little bit safer. People don't look at us like we're the road rage guy. We're not passing on that poison, this contagious poison. We help out our neighbor a little bit. Now they don't hate us as much. Now we get a wave and, hey, how you doing, But they go to church. Maybe we know one person now in church that we never knew before. And we can, say hello to them outside of church. We don't want to talk during Mass or before or after Mass. But the minute we walk outside, we can have a conversation. How's the weather today? Those bridges get us over the bad stuff. The bad stuff is down there, and we're building these bridges to go over it, to conquer it. If your city, town, village, being part of the government, or maybe they have a local gardening club or historical club or something at your library, participating in programs that maybe your town has. And a lot of it is not just, hey, I got to go there and I got to do this. You always ask me to do stuff. Some of it is you meet people. And when they see that maybe you're a little more patient and you seem to be squared away a little bit better than maybe they are, that maybe they'll find some direction to go to God as well, like you started out, you're doing every day. We kind of forget that our guardian angel has been with us since we were inside of our mom's womb, and he's going to be with us. No one really sits there and appreciates that there are prayers out there. I've been saying one every day from mine. It's angels of God, our guardian dear, to whom is loved, commits us here. Ever this day be at our side, to light and guard, to rule and guide. And I do 7 glory bees at that point. Makes a huge difference to remember to be thanked. I like being thanked. My dad and probably my brothers and my son, he likes being thanked. My wife does. The women I work with, the women I have in my life, people like being thanked. And for someone to stay with you always, even when you're completely screwing up, he's not sitting there saying, man, this guy's a complete screw up. Why did you give me to him? He's not doing any of that stuff. He's sitting there trying to help the best he can. There is, in Romans chapter 1, verses 7, St. Paul is sitting there saying, grace and peace to you from God our Father and from the Lord Jesus Christ. They use this as well as part of the Mass, that would not a communion service that would be done with if a priest or a bishop was not available. And, he would say, blessed be God forever, and we would respond back, blessed be God forever. And I've heard it in the readings, and of course it's in the Bible. Grace and peace to you from God our Father. It goes right back to me and God again, where I started my peace journey. Grace and peace to you. He gives us his graces to get closer to him so he can bring us into heaven. And we can do the right thing while we're here. He wants us to have peace. And it comes from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Can't ask for anything better than that. The other part of this is that when you leave Mass, they have, in the Roman Missal, which is the book we use for church, there's concluding rites. And in the concluding rites, one of them that they have listed is go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life. I think that's pretty magnificent. And at that moment in time, you should be saying to yourself, what were the readings about? Do I remember them? Do I remember what the homily was about? How could I possibly be doing that? Go in peace. I got that. I'll be nicer to people. Glorifying the Lord by your life. If my life is a mess, and I'm continuing to keep it messy, purposely, because I'm comfortable there, I'm not listening to what this great advice that came from the priest through the Holy Spirit. From the Holy Spirit through the priest. Got that backwards. And I'm not listening to the words that were written by these saints, these apostles, with the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. I don't even remember what he said by the end of the Mass. How could I actually go out there glorifying the Lord? How can I bring him glory? How can I make him happy with me if I can't even pay attention for 45 minutes to an hour? Can I have a discussion on my way to the car with my family, my wife? Can I have a discussion with somebody about what the priest said during the homily if I didn't even pay attention, that it wasn't that important to me? Think about that. Go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life. Go in peace. Okay? How do you do that? Glorifying the Lord by your life. Is my life glorifying the Lord? Is it showing the world a way to world peace? So everyone out there, these videos are going to get better as we go along. A little bit more technically better, maybe. Not as sloppy, I guess. But I'm going to be covering many topics as we go along here. And I wanted to do this because it's Holy Week here, of course, everywhere, because of this time frame. And I wanted to ultimately go into doing the Divine Mercy Chaplet, what it's about, what the heck does that mean, starting Good Friday, so we have a better understanding of this. So I will let you go, and I will remind you what the priest tells us, or the deacon, or the bishop, whoever's helping out, doing the Mass. And it's go in peace, glorifying the Lord by your life. Take care, everyone.